Fantastic. So thank you so much for that introduction, Darina. So I'm going to keep it very short here. The idea that we wanted to basically inject here is to start a discussion about, some more innovative approaches to media education. And just to give you a little bit of an idea, sort of this whole thing for us actually started with a recruiting challenge that we had as a company. So we were looking for, potential media managers and people to sort of join the company. And we figured that we need to find a way to sort of pull out those who can be creative, face challenges and things like that. And, that was the original Media M game that we came up with. But since then, we've sort of deployed it as a educational tool here and there. And well, our hypothesis is that there's something here and we'd love to sort of start the discussion and take things further. So very quickly, look, media industry is changing faster than ever. Maybe some of you have seen this slide, but, TV took 22 years to reach 50 million users. The internet took 7 years, TikTok less than a year. Things are moving faster than ever. At the same time, what we see is that the education field has in some areas sort of been lagging. So, kind of this book-driven chalk and talk, I think is there's still a lot of that. I think we do get more and more of this sort of practical case-driven education, which is a great thing. That's something that is already a lot more practical and allows people to, learn based on the latest information, really the latest sort of challenges that media managers run into. But if we look at the opportunities that we have, there's still actually quite a lot to do, right? So whether it's MOOCs, massive online courses or sort of immersive games, there's actually quite a bit that can be done. So what should the future of media education look like? I actually am a big fan of memes. I'm on Team Meme. So, it's really about not learning what to think, but learning to think in itself, right? So the idea is that we should be stimulating creative thinking. One of the things that I always sort of hear whenever, we do trainings with media managers is that, you'll show media managers a case or you'll describe a situation. People will essentially say like, look, my media is unique. I sort of live in a special bubble or whatever. And, and they'll listen to the case, but it will come in one ear and it will come out the other ear. And it doesn't really sort of, it's very difficult to retain knowledge, right? If you want a sort of slightly more detailed version of that, when you look at what people actually remember and the learning outcomes, when people read or hear something, they get sort of 20% of the content. When they actually sort of get involved, that's where you manage to retain things. And of course, there is a beautiful Chinese proverb that encapsulates this whole idea in a very sort of terse and sort of short format. Tell me I forget, show me I remember, involve me and I understand. So what did we do in order, so this Media M thing, what did we actually do to sort of test people that were potential hires? And since then we've sort of rolled it out as a training, as an occasional training for media managers. Well, we essentially took a real life case. So you take a real life case of a media that's been generous enough to sort of share the information about its financials, its HR problems, its operations and things like that. And then you essentially present, you present students with the challenge of cracking the case. They are the managers. They have to make managerial decisions. Somebody is the head of finance, somebody is the chief editor, somebody is the head of, the product, all the technical stuff. And they run into a series of challenges and a series of role plays and actually have to make decisions about, what are they supposed to do in order to, solve the problem and have a media that is still alive and functioning at the end of the simulation. There's a great opportunity to sort of introduce a lot of crises into this, which is also something that, is very familiar to media. And by the way, it's actually a well-used practice of wargaming. I'll come back to that in a second. But basically, if you think about the media simulation as a series of rounds, round one, you're sort of preparing the annual budget. Round two, you're doing annual performance reviews. Then you're launching a new product. Then you're raising funds, and each of the rounds, some unexpected crisis will show up in the form of a role player, in the form of an email that's telling you like, oh, you had your plans for the budget, but it turns out that one of the editors blew the 10% of the budget at the casino, or like stole the funds or whatever. So you have to adjust, unexpected things happen. And to be honest, while they might seem unexpected in the moment, they actually do happen in real life also when you manage a media. For those who have run a media organization, that the most crazy things really can happen. By the way, this practice of wargaming, it's actually not something that we invented. It comes from the financial and health sectors. So a lot of the, so those are industries where on a regular basis, they have a scenario where, for example, there is a financial crash or there is an epidemic or something like that, and various people sort of role play, what do you do in that kind of scenario, right? So we're essentially applied this kind of wargaming idea to the media landscape. What actually came out of that we found interesting from an educational perspective? Well, firstly, it breaks down silos. So the great thing is that, you can put an editor and tell him like, you are now the chief accountant, right? You can tell somebody who's a marketing specialist that they are now responsible for the editorial content. And one of the problems that, at least in my opinion, we face as an industry is that people really see the whole world through the perspective of their job. There's very little changes there, between sort of career paths inside most media. That's changing now, but traditionally, if you are a journalist, you don't move to sales. If you are in sales, you don't move into product. So people really only understand the organization from their perspective. Well, in this kind of role-playing wargaming scenario, you can actually put people in lots of different places. It forces people to put on both their thinking caps in terms of hard and soft skills, because some of the problems, you can force people to sort of have a negotiation, have a discussion, convince somebody to sort of stay on, or maybe even fire somebody. And then there's hard skills where they need to analyze a budget. So it allows you to sort of test a lot of things at the same time. And then finally, it does sort of prepare people to face a challenge and straight away think about action. One of the things that often happens, or at least in my experience, media managers will be presented with a challenge, and the response is, we have to think about it, we have to talk about it, we have to reflect. Well, no, actually, if you're a media manager, often you also have to take action very quickly. And well, when you're in a game scenario where you have 10 minutes or 15 minutes to go to the next round, well, then you have to take the action relatively quickly. And it sort of installs a different way of thinking and a different way of operating. Then finally, the thing that I would just like to leave us on, and then we can move to the open discussion, is sort of what are the skills that we need, right? So this is from the Future of Jobs report, World Economic Forum. Obviously, this is not just about media, but if we look at the list of skills that are really valued right now, complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, I would dare to say that that's something that is really important in the media world as well. And the question that I have is sort of, how can we even, improve the sort of the media education programs so that they are really sort of preparing people for all of these things? And yes, that's it. That was the lightning pitch. Thank you very much for the introduction.
And as your personal moderator, could I please ask you a question?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
So this sounds like a very cool case. So you already told us that Genomics used it during the recruiting, and it actually helped very much. I should say we hired a couple brilliant media winners. But also, do you have any idea how other media or educational institutions projects can use it to do what, except for recruiting, learning, maybe testing how teams work together or something else?
So one thing that I have found is, so a couple of examples. One thing is in the sort of the business school environment, you, especially the ones that are focused on training entrepreneurship, you do have quite a bit of these kind of simulations, role plays and things like that, as a way to sort of put students in the shoes of somebody who is going to ask, for example, for an investment, of somebody who's going to go to the bank to have a difficult discussion about financing. So there is definitely a sort of a skills, kind of a business school skills aspect here. In terms of a professional sort of a work environment, look, I think these kind of programs, at least from what I've seen, are one of the types of trainings that are used to select and train middle management that is on a sort of fast accelerated career path. So when you have people who are, you see that they have a lot of potential and you want to groom them for, higher roles, these kind of role plays and simulations, they can be used to essentially give them a, speed up their experience and get them to learn more and learn quicker.
It also seemed to me that, while taking part in the medium game, people were also, it was also kind of making obvious who are the leaders and who are the, followers, and how people divide the roles between them naturally. So is that also something that you can do just to test how certain people work together in a certain team?
Well, I would definitely not let the participants pick their own roles. I would assign it to them based on their weaknesses, because I'm evil. So the person who doesn't like finance, I would make them the CFO. The person who doesn't like, the technical side, I would make them head of product, because they really do need to understand what the other side of the table looks like. You can be a little bit less mean, but I wouldn't let people sort of pick their comfort zone.
Yeah, but I mean, by analyzing it, you could also see like a CFO becoming a CEO, actually, because, that is a leader of the team and stuff like that.
Absolutely. And I think sort of as we go forward and the media environment becomes more dynamic and more open to sort of hybrid careers, we'll also see more people who are jumping from editorial to product, from product to, customer engagement and so forth. So I think this is also, there's also an opportunity there.